But whereas people see the alpha in the room as the big, strong man, I don't. Depending on where his mindset is, or depending on what type of person he is. The alpha in the room could be the violinist who is in front of the crowd, because they have connected so beautifully with something within them to be able to control emotion through music. The alpha could be a multitude of different things. But as soon as you start going into this dark side, and then we're going back into the kind of Jungian idea of the shadows and things like that. Everyone has these shadow parts of their personalities.
Enunciate a bit more.
So we're in a beautiful place.
We are.
Yeah. Oh,
absolutely. Unfortunately, the cameras can't see that. They can just see our beautiful faces. But yes, we are here in Cullercoats Bay, and the sea is way out there. It's absolutely beautiful. There's some kids crabbing or foraging.
It's hard.
Seaweed.
Yeah. It's hard to feel sad or down when you're in a place like this. Not that I want to feel that way.
Yeah.
But there's certainly times when I come along here, when you come along to reflect on life, and then you find yourself sitting here, and I wonder, do you think that'll pick up that bit of wind there?
Who knows?
Who knows? Let's just roll with it. Let's just talk anyway. These rocks, before we're going to have a conversation about these, they're so unique, and like I never knew that rocks had like such individuality. I know that might sound to some people a bit ridiculous because they're just rocks to some people, but
to many people they are just rocks.
They are just rocks.
But that's the tragedy, because they are so much more than that. I mean, yeah, maybe at the end of the video I'll do a little pano to some rocks.
Yeah, or cut some in, you know.
Yeah.
Depends how good your editing skills are. But
if the rocks are good, the editing skills are good.
There's some beautiful rocks over there, and when you look at them, like, I don't know, it's like there's a story in each one. You find yourself questioning where the colours came from and the marks came from, and then where did the stone even originate? And that's the beautiful thing about this area anyway, is that obviously the sea comes in and just covers this area completely. So then what's it bringing in, and then what's it taking away? From where I live, just up there and looking down upon this, it's like, it's ever changing. Yeah.
For me, bang on. I was just going to say, it's that being in nature, being around things that are constantly changing.
Yeah.
Like nothing. There's no straight lines in nature. Like there's nothing that's straight, that's linear. Everything has got its own form, its own pattern, its own uniqueness. And we do miss that when we wake up in the same house, the same room, the same walls. There's something that probably affects us because we're not around that ever-changing, ever-cycle thing, and we always it's that human predicament where we think everything's permanent, but yeah, it's not, and because we don't have that immediate connection with things anymore.
And it's so easy to get caught up in that, isn't it? That idea of like, it's something that I feel like stagnant at times. And you kind of forget that the world's always changing, that things are always moving, and that an emotion that you might feel at a certain point in time, you might feel completely different in 10 minutes time. Just depends what the kind of stimulus is in life. But I think we get caught up in these things so often. I'm feeling it in terms of purpose, but I also believe that it's a very positive thing to feel. Because when I feel that I'm not moving forward, that I'm not creating anymore, and that I'm not growing or developing, I feel, well, just to take that back a little bit, it's the purposefulness of life, and what is the meaning of life. And then when you kind of define your life to to be something where every day you want to be moving forward. When you don't move forward on that day, how does that personally affect you? And it's an interesting thing, I think, in today's world, because we've had so much talk about like grinding and, you know, working as hard as you possibly can to achieve things and that, but then there's those days when you just stop, and those can be the most beautiful days of them all. So finding a balance between the train belting forward and then the train stopping because it needs to let passengers off and let passengers on and whatever it needs to do. I think that balance is such a hard thing.
It is. I've been battling with that for a long time, I think. I put a post up the other day about, I think it was a gratitude practice, and it's that being grateful of the moment, but always knowing that I can be better, and having that relationship with growing and getting, okay, yes, I am striving towards that. I'm grateful for what I've got. Doesn't mean I'm complacent and I want to stay still, because in my mind, if you're not moving forward, you're going backwards. There's no hanging around in the middle. Yeah, totally. But it's all around that murky balance area, isn't it?
And it's funny to think how much of it is like ego and how much of it is almost like a kind of fulfilling your life purpose for whatever that's supposed to be, and how the ego is interlinked with that. There's a song by Faithless, I Want More, which is probably a tune that most people have heard in terms of the part 2 of it, which is like the dancey version. The first version, part 1, is just, it's incredible, because it talks about people wanting more in life and why can't you just have enough. And there's a great lyric in it.
What song was it?
I Want More. Great tune, mate. I'll send you it after this.
We'll play it now.
Yeah. Nice. What's the lyric? It's something like, it's a shame that your soul don't shine as much as your possessions do. Something like that. And it's just a fantastic line, that, like, because it's like we're basically saying here that we're striving for more. We want more. And how much of that is just ego? I want more. Like, and you might release yourself from possessions and things like that and think, oh, well, it's not possessions that I want. But I mean, look at the headsets that we've got on. You're talking thousands of pounds on headsets.
I wanted these.
Because you want quality in life. And that's what it always comes down to for me. So, like, why would I want to have an Audi RS7? Right? Why would that be my car of choice? Well, the way it looks, the brand, what I identify with personally. Like, I think the Audi brand's cool. It's sleek. The design is nice, tidy. It's actually very simple. But also, it comes down to things like performance. I want to be able to put my foot down, and I want the equipment that I use to be able to react and respond the way that I want it to respond. So people might look at something and be like, oh, well, you want an Audi RS7. That's egoic. And
yeah, you're compromising for something.
Yeah, and maybe it is egoic, but maybe it's partially egoic. Maybe it's 40% ego, and maybe it's 50% performance, quality driven. Because, you know, if you buy things that aren't good quality, they're more likely to break. Ben from the CCO from the Alpha Complex has got a great quote. He says, buy once, buy well, don't buy again. So, and you know, we did that with some lazy boy chairs that were bought.
Okay. Still got them?
Still got them, still going strong, but we were paying a lot of money each a month, and I think we went overboard on it that time.
Okay.
But that was an idea that we had when we went to university together. It was always let's get some lazy boy chairs in the future.
After the Friends episode.
I guess it's linked to it, aye.
Anyway.
Which I think leads on to something really amazing from what we're seeing in the world today.
Yeah.
I've been asking the question recently, like how many of our thoughts are our thoughts. I think there's a real depth to the exploration of what that really means, because there's times now, I think I've conditioned myself over the last few years to become hyper aware of thoughts and feelings that I have. I've had to, because, I mean, to shoehorn the Alpha Complex in.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah,
Save me asking.
Yeah, totally. The origins of the Alpha Complex were from my relationship with anxiety. It was something that grew and grew until it was just, well, the perfect words to use are really out of control. Because it is out of control when you're living in darkness and you can't see the light. So it was that all-encompassing to the point where, like, I was having health anxiety, but it was a generalised anxiety as well. It was living in fear. And I think a lot of it was living in fear of things that had happened in the past, resurfacing. And sometimes these weren't even that big of things. These were just things that were just small, little, silly things you did as a child. But it just seemed as if everything was coming to the forefront. And I couldn't understand it. It was literally as though my brain couldn't comprehend all of the data. It couldn't process it. And it was as if things were just being pushed to the front and being like, oh, this has just happened. How are people going to view you because of that? Like, oh, if you do that, this might be the what happens from it, and that's a terrible thing.
So the mind, the questions, the awareness almost of your actions.
Yeah. The real, the awareness of the feeling, the symptoms that came from it, but not the awareness of where those roots led back to.
Sure.
So I mean, we talk about the relationship with our fathers and how they shaped and moulded who we are. I was just talking to a friend before on Instagram, talking about this idea, obviously what's going on in the world at the minute with regards to Black Lives Matter and people's varied responses to it. But if you look on social media, what you'll see is the same stories being repeated by many different people depending on their beliefs. So the discussion that I was having with a friend who's an open-minded, great guy, he's on his journey, he's 31, and it just seems that when men are getting to 30, 31, 32, a lot of the time they're going through this kind of transformation. And it almost feels like a death in some ways. And this is what I'm saying, I'm 35 now, so I was 30 when my anxiety became so prominent. And when I was coming out the back end of this kind of like a dark episode, and then you back out and you're like, holy shit, it's as if you've been like thrown back out of the womb. It's like, yeah, wow, that was crazy, I don't ever want to go back there, but because I've been there, I'll never go there again. And that's a very foolish thing to think, because you will go there again. I think the idea is, and certainly what I've learned, and when I talk about conditioning, is I've learned that when I go into the cave, I'm able to take a flashlight with us. So I'm not just aimlessly wandering around in the cave.
Could you describe the cave, like what that actually symbolises for you?
Yeah, sure. So it goes back to like Jungian philosophy. Again, which could seem like it could be a nice theme of what this is.
Sure.
Like, I'm now going to talk about a concept that I didn't make up, but I'm going to pass it on as if I understand truly what it is. So perhaps Jung, when he was talking about it, or Joseph Campbell, when he was talking about it, and all the people that have talked about the cave in the past, have got their own representation of what the cave is based upon experience. So all I can do now is tell you what I believe the cave is. The cave is where the darkest shadows reside within your mind. It's a place that you're destined to go into if you want to live a successful and fulfilled life. Because when you go in there, and actually this is the beauty of what my reflection of what the cave is, right? I don't see the cave as just a cave, because that is, when you imagine a cave now, like the one we just saw, one in the rocks over there, it's pretty one-dimensional really for what it is.
Yeah, I looked straight in, a little.
Yeah, you're in, you'd suss the place out, and then you're back out. So that cave was just it's okay, let's use that cave as an example for what the cave is. That was a cave where There was darkness in there. You didn't know what was in. You stuck your head in. It was light enough for you to be like, okay, I can see what's around here. And then you step back out, and you didn't need to go back in that cave. So this is why it was about a year ago I was thinking about this cave idea, and I thought about it's not a cave. It's a complexity of tunnels that lead to bigger, darker caves the further you go in.
Mm-hmm.
Because what happens is people have an episode of depression or anxiety. They step into the cave. They're in there. They're wandering around. They're clueless to what's going on. It's full of fear. It's full of darkness. It's a horrible place to be. But then eventually they stumble back out. Hopefully, some people don't come back out. You stumble back out, and then you're like I said before, you're like, oh, I don't want to go back in there ever again. But as you do start to go in there, and you start to unearth new things, so with regards to what really truly is the cave is the root of all of your thoughts and feelings and beliefs and values, everything that you are. And it's as if you've been building this cave subconsciously all of your life, to the point where something will happen, an occurrence will happen in your life. So a good one to talk about, I think, like, because it's such a big one with me, big one with yourself, big one with the guy that I was talking to on Instagram before, and he mentioned this as well during the conversation, even though we weren't talking about it, again, is the relationship with the Father. There are depths and complexities to the cave that we need to unearth, and you do that by shining light in the cave, and you can only do that if you learn the skills, condition yourself to be able to go in with the flashlight. If you don't have the flashlight, you're aimlessly wandering around. Who knows what you're going to put your hand on? Who knows what beasts are in there? And that's the real fear of it. It's the unknown. So to take it back 5 years ago for me, it was a real case of like going through immense feelings. Like, one minute I believed I had a lump on my testicle, and then I went to the doctors, and the doctor felt my testicle, and he was like, where's the lump? And then I felt the testicle, and I couldn't feel the lump anymore. I couldn't find it. But I was lying there, like, scared, sweating. There was other instances, many of them, in which I was like, well, what's this mark? I've never noticed this mark on my body before. My mate the other day said there was about the back of his ear. He was like, is this normal to have your bone? Like,
always check the other side.
Yeah. So what he's effectively doing, he's feeling the symptoms of something much deeper. Mm-hmm. And that's where the cave is. That's where the cave is so important. Because it's a place where you can go in to truly learn about yourself.
Yeah, it's the only place.
You've got to follow the roots. And this is what I'm saying, this is why I'm linking the cave to this concept of what's going on at the moment. Because people have had different experiences in life. You're seeing people who are on the far right. Well, at the origin of what this is really kicked off, a guy kneels on somebody's neck for a prolonged period of time and kills somebody, and it's obviously atrocious. So you've got this kind of battle of left and right going on, and then the whole spectrum of how people feel in that. And one of my friends actually put a Donald Trump Jr. thing on, where it's a testimonial. A memorial was defaced, but it was actually a memorial, apparently, for a black regiment. So you've got this far right idea where people are outraged. People are outraged at people being outraged. And you've got this other side of the idea. But all the way along the way, if you just go on your social media and just observe what you see, you're seeing people pass on information. And the majority of the time, it's not their information. Now, I'm not saying that anyone's right or wrong within this. All I'm saying is that I'm just observing that people's thoughts and feelings. People are like, I've felt this way from the whole of my life. Or someone says, I've always felt this way. And it's like, I know you, and I know you haven't.
Mm-hmm. Well, even that sentence is just untrue, isn't it? Really.
Yeah.
We're all
can't be possible.
We're a complex being, and we are. Just checking that out. Temperamental. So we're a complex being, as much as that is. We're made up of all our experiences and our happenings, our conditioning, our experience. We're made up of it all. I sometimes feel it. When I think about that kind of concept as you are a product of your environment, I think about feral children.
Yeah.
And I've bought some books on feral children, and I think, okay, they've been brought up by, there's literal kids in the world, they've been brought up by packs of wolves, and they are totally, it's going off a bit of a tangent, but they are totally separate from the human race. They are acting and being very similar to wolves. Yeah, that's your environment that shaped that.
Yeah, it's learn behaviour.
Learn behaviour. So, us in this life, we are all a concept of everything else. And yeah, you're right. You go on social media, and I try and be more aware of how I am in not plagiarizing other people's work, but critiquing it, thinking about it. And I think now more than ever, it's really important to critical think about things and think about, okay, where have I got that idea? Have I looked at other ways of seeing this, or am I just going off what is passionately said to me?
Yeah,
which is important to go off those passionate people. But maybe a question for you: do you think that it's more important now than ever to really question where you're getting your thoughts from?
Yeah, well, it has to be. It has to be for the reason of the amount of data that's available. So I've always had this theory anyway. Always have this theory.
There you go.
So
behaviour.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. And once you start becoming more aware of yourself in the examination of thoughts, emotions, and importantly language that you use, you can start catching yourself, start checking yourself. So like I've just done there, I've always had this thought, and I haven't, quite simply haven't always had any thought, just like what you said before. But we've talked before about the concept of data. So your brain is processing data all the time. Why is it doing that? Because your brain's trying to keep you alive. It's for survival. Okay, so the idea is really, and this is what well-being is at its essence, is you want to get good quality data into your life.
It's also playing a big part in disregarding a lot of data that it takes in.
Yeah. So you've got your psychology. This is what I'll break it down to: your psychology, your emotions, and your physicality.
Which is a big part of the Alpha Complex, right?
Of course.
At its foundations.
Yeah. So like our aim really at its core is to assist people to live better lives by, it's amazing because his shoes are in the water.
Amazing.
How's he managed that?
Why I don't wear shoes that often.
That's absolutely incredible. People walking across rocks and managing to lose their shoes in the water. Beautiful.
I think he might have found a shoe, one or the other.
No, that's his actual shoe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's his shoe. Crazy. I mean, that's the thing about lockdown, by the way. The way that people are responding to it, you are just getting people who are getting high and getting drunk, and these guys look drunk, at least. And it's midday, and they're going for a journey across the rock. Fair play to them. Fair play to them. So, psychology, emotions, and physicality are real the three tenets to well-being that need concentration. So, in the same way that you've got these three tenets, then you've got various ways to supply your brain and your body with good quality data or bad quality data.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously people these days, before, you know, the pandemic and stuff, were like, why are people suffering so much these days? Why are people seemingly suffering more than they have done in the past? And there's obviously a complexity to that, and many different reasons. But for me personally, I truly believe it comes down to what is the quality of the data that you're putting in your brain, you're putting in your body, and well, your mind as well, obviously, because like, what are you reading daily? Is the breadth of your reading, is its core social media? Because
yeah, no, it's a valid point, and I know a lot of people who it is, and some days it's mine.
Yeah, God, totally. And then them are bad days usually.
Yeah.
You're like, oh God, I'm scrolling.
Yeah.
And it's like, so there's something that's being satisfied within you for that anyway, right? But to again link it to what we're talking about before, this theme of like your thoughts and your emotions and your feelings, these things being so important. If you're reading these things, and it's not just like, so much has been said about this, so it's pointless just going around down the idea of, you know, like, oh, if you're reading bad things, like we know that we know what that is. But when it's linked to the concept of data, and like, so this is the perfect example of what I mean. Where we're sitting now, you can smell seaweed, you see rocks, you see the formations of things, and the sky, the sea. And this is why, like, this is why this is good quality data. The reason is because the human brain has been processing this data for so many years. Mm-hmm. It hasn't been processing social media for long. Social media is a magnifying glass. It's an opportunity. And this is when people are like, social media is bad. Well, the reason why it's bad is because what it does is it enhances what being human is. You can connect with somebody on social media. Mm-hmm. I'm going to see a guy on Friday about space. Now I'm looking at doing some talks, and I met him through social media. I've never met the guy before, face to face. So the connection and the ability to connect is there. Mm-hmm. But so is the ability to go on and have an argument right now. If you go on there, you won't have to scroll far in these times, mm-hmm. with being mm-hmm. pandemic, Black Lives Matter and all this kind of thing. You won't have to scroll far until you find negative data. Mm-hmm. Your brain doesn't enjoy it. It doesn't want it.
Not that often, not that easy.
No.
Not without much consequence, not without much direct feedback.
Yeah.
Being in the like this with people.
And this is what the real important thing about saving green spaces is. By green spaces, I mean spaces like this as well. I mean the sky above us. I mean just the environment in general. Mm-hmm. Because it's only been such a short space of human history where we've actually had these other things to focus on, like your career, you know, like you know, digging down in the grind, what we mentioned before and stuff like that. It's actually quite unnatural. And what we're trying to take is these old ways of living, maybe it's even like the hunter-gatherer concept, and then apply that to work. Right now, I'm going to go out. I'm going to you know, go out and hunt and gather and bring back the food. It's pretty much just the same, really, as going out, get my job done, bring back the money. Mm-hmm. You know, but we're pushing ourselves a lot.
So you're saying that's not. We're still acting in this ancestral way. We're still, but we're not living in that way. So do we need to think about it a bit more? Do we need to but at the end of the day, we are these beings, right, that have all these impulses, these hormones, these drives for certain things. Like, across the board, right? We have drives, but because we're still acting upon those in a unnatural environment, it's very, very difficult.
Yeah. We need to remember what the quest is. Yeah, and the search for good quality well-being is part of the quest, because you mentioned before that you wanted to talk a little about like the hero's journey.
Yeah, for sure.
So the hero, just for anyone that doesn't know, the hero's journey.
Yeah, let's unpack that then. So the hero's journey.
Yeah, because this is all linked together.
What is it? How's it affected you?
Yeah.
When did you first hear about it? Perhaps that's a good place to start. So what is it first of all?
Well, so, do you know what? Like, I'll start at the end there, because it's quite an interesting idea to think of when did I first hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I probably first heard about it about 3 years ago. But perhaps I've known about it since I was able to think.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I don't know. And this is the beauty of what the hero's journey is.
Yeah.
So the hero's journey is the biggest. It's the biggest story that's been told throughout history, and it's repetitive in all of your great novels, your great films, and it really the concept. It was coined in the 40s by Joseph Campbell, but people were talking about it before that. Like I say, people have been talking about it since the beginning of time, because it is effectively the true reflection of what it is to be human. So the hero is you. You doing this podcast now is part of your hero's journey. You answered the call at some point. So what usually happens is, and the way that we're doing it at the Alpha Complex, we've kind of taken all those concepts and married them with what our own philosophies are and our values as an organisation. And we've got into 3 parts. We've got the first part, which is the call to adventure. So when the hero is living his normal life, and the hero is usually unsatisfied in some way, or maybe it's just living like a kind of stagnant existence, like was said before. Something will happen which will let the hero know that they've got a call to answer. So in your films, The Matrix, it's Neo. He's hacking. He's living a normal existence. He's not really enjoying his life that much. He gets a message through on his computer telling him to follow the white rabbit. He follows the white rabbit, which is a tattoo on a girl. Goes to a club, meets Trinity, and then from that meets Morpheus. And then Morpheus, at the end of Act 1, gives him the opportunity to either take the red pill or the blue pill. The red pill and the blue pill symbolise consciousness and unconsciousness. Take the blue pill, you'll wake up tomorrow morning as if nothing happened, and you'll continue your normal life. In the hero's journey terms, that's you will reject the call. Or take the red pill, and you'll go on this big journey where you'll learn the true depth of your existence. That is answering the call. So he takes the red pill, he answers the call.
It's interesting you're saying this, and I'm just getting so riled up. Like, it's fueling me. It's insane. And this is good you explain this, because I know some people who still struggle with the film and they don't understand it. Because it's not as black and white as that, is it?
No.
They don't really explain a lot.
No.
But it's the premise is exactly what you've just explained.
Yeah, but the beauty of what that is in story writing terms with that movie is that it throws you off in many different ways. You get caught up in so many different things. So like Alice in Wonderland, Follow the White Rabbit, you know, like
sense of theme here.
yeah, totally. The Wizard of Oz, that moment when the hero thinks to themselves, I can't take this anymore, I'm not doing it anymore, so let's take my hero's journey and link them together. So my answering the call was me having those feelings, those bouts of suffering, where I was like, I can't take this anymore, like I need to do something. And I remember I said to a guy that I used to work with, I said I want to run a mental health charity. And
where were you working at the time?
I was writing scripts, online scripts, and the guy, lovely guy, but he was like, ooh, you know, Jonny, I'm not really sure you're cut out for that, because he'd seen me suffer. So he was like, but what he may also be is somebody who never answered the call themselves. It's very easy, and you'll see it. You might even see it in things with like your father and stuff like that. I've seen it.
People with a lot of regrets, right?
People who are like, you shouldn't do that.
People that haven't answered the call of the urge to do something of worth, of meaning, of that their soul is crying out for, perhaps.
When you talk to people, especially elderly people like parents, there's loads of stories of, oh, well, I was going to do that, but... And then there was I was actually the first person to say this, but I didn't do anything about it at the time because this, you know, I had a family that I wanted, and usually there's a very concrete reason as to why they didn't do it in their minds when they retell the story. Oh yeah, I was going to go and do this, but I didn't because I had children to look after. You know?
You could still do that. Why don't you do that now?
Yeah. So even with like parents are perfect examples of wanting you to remain safe. It's very rare that parents are like, get out there and go and make something magical of yourself.
If you die, you die.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Do it.
They're like, no, like, I've invested loads of time, energy and everything into you. Stay safe. Go and get that 20k job a year. Just remain safe. Get a wife, get kids, and then I can then have an overview of you as a successful person, and I feel like I've done well now because of that. But if you decide that you're going to go skydiving and do crazy things, they're like, oh, like, if you die, what representation is that upon them in their life? Is that a failure for them? Did they not teach you right? Who knows? That comes back to their own personal story. But the Alpha Complex was born out of that answering the call. I knew I needed to do something, so I went and I just started. I actually contacted charities, and I was like, I want to volunteer. I want to do work. I've had these experiences. They've been really heavy, and now I've just got this feeling inside of us that I want to do something, and that's what the hero's journey is. It's that feeling deep within you when you're like, I feel like I need to do something. I don't quite know what it is. When I contacted those charities, they told me just to sort out my own mental health.
Sort out your own.
Yeah. Like you know, if you've got things going on, I think we suggest that you just like look after yourself, kind of shit, and just don't bother going out and doing anything. To me, that was like, that's what a ridiculous thing to say to us. Like, I'm coming here with hands and a mind and the willingness to want to do something. But it's good that that did happen, because when the hero accepts the call,
there's a rejection of the call, right?
Yeah, and then there is obviously the rejection. Usually in the story, the hero rejects the call first. I'm not doing that. Frodo, Gandalf, go and do this. Oh no, we'll just put the ring over here and we'll forget all about it. That's not what your story is here. You're Frodo Baggins. Remember, the Lord of the Rings is about you. So that's the same with you in your life. And if you view yourself as a hero in life, wow, your life will change.
Yeah, I think that's one very powerful tool, to just view your life as a film. You're the main character.
Yeah.
Something happens to you. What does the main character do? This is halfway through the film. You can't just end it. Like, there needs to be some sort of reaction to the call, and you might face many obstacles, but what does the hero do? What does the lead character do? Also, if this is a film, let's just view it as a film. If you're watching, what do you want to see?
Yeah, totally. What do you want to see for your own life? So if you're the observer of your life, what do you want the main character to do? What do you want them to achieve?
What would make for a good watch?
What is success? What's a good story? So, and you see a lot of people taking different avenues with regards to what is a good story, without really truly knowing that they're on the journey. So when the hero accepts the call, They then go into the trials. It's a big area. The trials are also aligned with what we call the special world.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, we've used a few examples there. The Wizard of Oz, she's no longer in Kansas, Dorothy. She's now in Oz, which is just upside down. You know, there's like talking lions and and various other crazy things. Wonderland for Alice. You know, Bedlam.
Chaos.
Yeah. Matrix, Neo, he's now on board a ship. And it's as if the clever thing about what they've done is it's almost inverted it.
Mm-hmm.
As if the ordinary world, which is the first part, until answering the call, until they cross the threshold, it's as if the ordinary world, the world that we live in now, the Matrix, is actually the Bedlam, is actually the chaos. He then goes on board this ship, and now it's time to learn the skills needed to be able to complete the journey. So in the film, he's like, and it's just such a quick way of doing it. He gets a thing put in the back of his head, and they're like, right, kung fu, karate, and he goes in and he fights Morpheus. Morpheus is the mentor. So there's usually a mentor in the hero's journey.
Yeah, mentor.
There's somebody that comes in usually in the first act, like a Gandalf, who's like, you need to go and do this journey. I can't do it with you, but I can give you sporadic pieces of guidance along the way.
Yeah, I think that they're evident, they're everywhere. You know, there's people that teach you every day. If you're ready to learn, the teacher will appear, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting that concept of the mentor is really important. I think we could talk a lot about that. I haven't spent too much time thinking about it, but there is this kind of understanding of, oh yeah, a mentor would be good right now. Someone to hold my hand and tell me what to do.
Yeah. So you've got this kind of desire within you. The hero within them has a recognition of a weakness, that they need some sort of guidance on the journey, but they don't know where the guidance is coming from, what shape or what form it is. I mean, we're sitting now among seaweed and rocks
And flies.
and I said before, sometimes when you come to this place, it's hard to be sad, even if you're reflective of things or you've got things going on in your career, your relationship. You come to a place like this and just ground.
Yeah, it's perspective really.
And that groundedness, it's quite mentor-like itself. That's what you would expect, isn't it?
This is true.
If you went to somebody who you're like, a father figure's perfect, your mother at times, I've got this thing going on in my life and it's getting us down and it hurts. And what you need from a mentor then is to give you a different perspective perhaps of what's going on in your life. Allow you to change your view, the lens in which you view in life. This area here does it perfectly. It's funny to think of nature in itself, Mother Nature, as a mentor, and so many more things. The trials and the tribulations of the journey begin in Act 2, when the hero now needs to learn the skills, acquire knowledge, learn new wisdom, to be able to go deep within the cave that we talked about before. Because when you accept the call, you start and you do it right. And there is, of course, there's wrong ways to do these things. People end up failing. People end up and like committing suicide and things like that because of their personal journeys. I'm not saying that's the wrong thing to do. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. It just happens. For certain people go down certain avenues that they end up in a scenario where they can't be here anymore. We can look at that as a sad situation, or again, we can look at it just as it is. It really depends on the perspective of how you look at life. But there are certainly ways, and you would have learned a lot yourself, of how to, gain more success in life because of the pain that you've went through. You go through it, you go in the cave, you come back out, you're like, whew. When you condition yourself to come back out and think, right, hold on a minute, and this is what I say to people a lot. What did you learn when you were in there? You went in the cave, it was dark. So that could be like anxiety. You were really anxious there, you had a panic attack, it was terrible.
Sure.
It happened to a friend a couple of months ago. He had a panic attack. And then at that point, when we were sat and we were talking about afterwards, and he's just like trying to get himself together. It's like, is that the time to be like, okay, you're better. Whew, thank God that's gone. Let's forget about what's just happened and move on, hope it never happens again. Or is that the time when we'll get in there, we'll get at the root of it, and we'll say, what were the thoughts? What were the feelings? What can we link them back to? Because in linking those back to something, we might be able to get to the bottom of those roots.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's truly what the hero's journey is in real life, I believe. Hero answers the call, goes through the trials. They then go into the cave where the hero feels like he's going to die, or she's going to die.
I feel if you link that to today, a lot of people go into the cave, but it's very, very easy to come out of it using distractions, using things to lift you out of that cave without coming from it, and spending time in it and understanding, okay, what is the lesson here?
Yeah.
It's too easy for us to be distracted, be pleased.
It's such hard work. Like, looking at yourself, evaluating yourself, looking at the errors that you've made, the mistakes, and taking ownership for all these things. Do you know what's much easier? Don't do it.
Oh, ignore it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Forget about it. Somebody else's fault. It was that person's fault as to why I just felt the way I did. That's classic in the language of you made me feel. Do you know what? The other day when we were talking, you made me feel this way. And that's when you can really be like, well, what I said perhaps obviously is made you feel a certain way, or you've made yourself feel that way from that. But like, I'm not the one who's in control of your emotion.
Well, let's look at anger. Anger, you made me angry. Well, actually, you're the only one that's responsible for being angry.
Yeah, and there's an interesting balance in that one as well, because you can get narcissists who'll be like, I'm not in control of your emotions, get over it. And then, but you have the other end of the scale, which is like, well, hold on a minute, like, you cheated on us or something like that, and now I felt a terrible way because of that. And then now you're telling me that you're not in charge of my emotions, and me feeling that way is almost wrong.
Sure.
That's when you get into kind of gaslighting and things like that.
Sure.
In the hero's journey, towards the end of Act 2, the hero will towards the midpoint, towards the end of Act 2, they'll start going through the ordeal. It's when things start slipping through the hero's fingers. It's when the hero feels like death is upon them. And I don't know how bad like your personal experience of poor mental health has been, but when you suffer anxiety or depression to a large scale, when you're in there, when you're truly in there, it feels very close to death. That's the belly of the whale. It's the cave. That's the place where the hero hits rock bottom. But from my personal perspective, I like to try and view the rock bottom as a springboard. And it's an opportunity to hit the ground and bounce back out. Because the hero, when there's a death, and the hero is actually still alive, well, that can only signify one thing, which is rebirth. And that's when the hero claims the biggest reward of the life. The reward can be in many different shapes and forms, whether it's money, whether it's a new friendship, whether it's a particular skill that they've acquired, whether it's a piece of wisdom. But this is why you see a lot of like born again people, because they've went on their hero's journeys. You see this concept that a gang member was a gang member, he was arrested, he actually killed someone, he did some time, he comes back out, he's born again. A lot of the time it happens in jail because people build a relationship with God, whatever form God might come in a Christian or Islamic or anything. But they answer the call. They go through the trials of the learning about it, and then they come back out, and what do? They go into Act 3. Act 3 is when the hero returns with whatever reward they claimed, and they now need to reintegrate it back into society. So with your gang members and things like that, that's why they're working in community places. And they're like, I was just like you. What that is they've now become the mentor, and they're now saying to the hero, I've been there, I've done that. It was a horrible place to go to. I don't want you to go there either. But people will always make their own journey.
Can we only ever learn through
personal experience?
Through the journey, through making mistakes?
Both. It's funny because I've got a friend who actively said that he observed life. He observed his sisters and brothers when he was younger. They all made the mistakes, and he was the youngest, and he was kind of sat back and was like, oh, without really deciding to do it, was like, everyone's being a bit crazy, I'll just be cool and go straight down the middle of the road. But in that, yeah, he doesn't suffer from mental health issues, but he has other things going on, like perhaps it's like self-admittedly, like he said, lack of assertiveness in life, and he just acquired, again, going back to what we were saying before, learning behaviour. He learned the behaviour of, it's much easier for me to sit and do nothing, and acquire almost like a freeze like quality. Like, do you know what, it's easier if I do nothing right now, and then nothing is asked upon us. Whereas me personally, I'm about the attack. I'm all about that. You know, there's an issue.
So when you went on your journey with it, when the Alpha Complex was born, you were like, right, I need to do something with this understanding that I've got from my own emotions, psychology. And the Alpha Complex was born. Which, let's talk about the alpha a bit, because that always intrigues me. Because some people have this, including myself, have this perception of the alpha is a negative thing in our society. If you're the alpha, you're dominant. It comes from I guess literature, and I know it's in The Game. Neil Strauss talks about the alpha male. In that dominant male in the species who has it's a hierarchy structure. But in this term, I mean, the alphas, where does the alpha come from?
So during that time, about 5 years ago, when I was rebuilding myself after like these bouts of anxiety, and I had a couple of events as well, which were like kind of a bad breakup and things like that, where have you seen The Watchmen before?
No, I don't think so.
A great movie, you should definitely see it. There's a part where a guy becomes a superhero, Dr. Manhattan, and he like explodes, and you see like all of these kind of like body parts in terms of like even his capillaries and his veins and everything. It's like you look at that and think like, wow, that is like that explosion, that feeling that you get where it's like where the rebirth is the only thing that you can possibly do from that, or die. That's the option that you have in life. When I was going through that time, I started looking up the concept of alpha, because I seen it mentioned in so many different things. And then I basically started watching YouTube videos about what alpha was, and everything was the symptoms of alpha. It was very much, you walk into a room, the alpha has his chin up, the alpha has his chest out, the alpha's dominant, the alpha's this and that. But I was always asking why is his chin up? What does that mean? Why is his chest out? And then following that thread, I got back into this idea of the alpha was actually like the kind of head of a tribe. It wasn't the biggest, wasn't the strongest, wasn't the fastest, wasn't any of those things. I mean, it could be, but mainly the alpha was somebody who could influence people, who influenced people by empathizing and understanding and being compassionate. So if there was two people having a fight, the alpha would go over, and as you would think from the way that we view alpha males, dominant men, they'd go over, hey, and start like,
just
ticking off.
Just the strongest.
Yeah. That's not the way it was. It was more like yous are in the same tribe, yous are brothers, yous two fight, we need yous in case we get attacked by anybody else. Like work it out. So that really changed my perspective on what alpha was. But I also, through my own journey, I really wanted to connect with men. And it was like, well, how can I connect with men? Why might men not be connecting with well-being, mental health, all these things? What are the reasons? And I believe that partly it's due to the language that's used around them. I looked at like mood trackers and things like that. And there was this like one called Feely. It might be a great mood tracker, but Feely, like me speaking to a guy, like a man's man, and being like, yeah mate, I'm totally connecting with what you're saying here. Have you ever downloaded the app Feely? Like it's just silly, like, and I was just seeing so much of it to the point where it's like, well, what have men got to connect with here? I mean, this is linking up quite nicely. I talked before about my personal feelings about like the Audi car. Why would the Audi be seen as a predominantly very, very high quality car? Because of things that I mentioned before, like the performance and things like that, the way it's built, the way it's engineered. So the idea came, like, can I create something in reflection of that? Reflection of this idea of, I'm not giving you a ball and saying, around the corner, Chris, you've got to climb over all of these rocks and kick the ball into the thing, and then when you do that, your suffering will end. And I believe that that's what some brands are in well-being for people. It's expecting people to get past the ego before they've even truly worked on it. Just drop it all, mate. Just download the app Feely. Like, but like, I'm a man and I don't really respond well. They can't say that to you. I can't really respond. But you're like, yeah, no, but it'll save you suffering. So take the ball, go around there and kick it in the back of the thing. For me, it was like, let's take the goal and bring it here. And you can bring it here by creating a brand where more men would engage with it. So I felt like the word alpha, and in the true respect of what I believe in alpha to be, which, like I said before, is a compassionate person, somebody who takes action, somebody who is present in the moment, who is listening when given the opportunity, who is able to dispense better quality advice because they do listen, because they're on their own personal journey of development in life. This is what I see alpha as. Somebody who takes ownership. When they're having an argument with somebody, can say, I've just said a bad thing there. I'm able to stop right now and recognise that I just said the wrong thing, and that was because of past conditioning. So the alpha for me really truly represents the apex of human existence. And that doesn't mean that you need to be physically strong. It means that you should be developing your body in the same way that you should be developing your mind. But whereas people see the alpha in the room as the big, strong man, I don't. Depending on where his mindset is, or depending on what type of person he is. The alpha in the room could be the violinist who is in front of the crowd, because they have connected so beautifully with something within them to be able to control emotion through music. The alpha could be a multitude of different things. But as soon as you start going into this dark side, And then we're going back into the kind of Jungian idea of the shadows and things like that. Everyone has these shadow parts of their personalities. Everyone has archetypes that they're living, that they're connecting with more. We've talked about yours before with regards to the seeker. You've got this part of you which is like, oh, I want to see the world. I want to explore. But then that could go, and you see this in people, where they go the tip over the point, and they go from being the explorer to being something like the trophy hunter, where it's like, oh yeah, I've been to Bali, I've been to Thailand, been to Singapore, been here, been there, and it's like you don't really feel like you're talking to somebody who's really got the depth of the culture. You're talking to somebody who wants to tell you where they've been, because that, in their eyes, raises status. And I mean, there's so much complexity to this discussion anyway.
Yeah, of course. I think for me, it's where the seeker tips slightly into it's never enough.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah.
But anyway, we can wrap it up there, mate.
Okay, mate.
Yeah.
Nice.
Jonny, I fucking appreciate you. I think you're world class, mate. Every time I see you, I tell you something, what's going on with me, and you look straight into my soul, and you see it in my eyes, and you're like, what's the root? What's the root?
Yeah.
And you get it, and you extract it somehow. Well, that's always the aim, and I think that's where we can, be, and it's just where the goal, where the treasure lies, right?
Well, it's a great base, isn't it, to be able to, continue our heroes' journeys. Because you've got yours with regards to yoga, with regards to what we're sitting doing now.
Yeah, for sure.
With regards to your own journeys and relationships, in relationships with your parents and things, so deeply pertinent part of your life, where it's like, well, how do I use the kind of discussions that we can have as friends?
Yeah, I feel like I'm in it. This is a tool at the end of the day to provoke these kind of conversations and just to really further understand what it's all about,
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing, mate.
Sweet. Wrap it up.